So he talked a little bit about being healthy as a leader, and he talked a little bit about the shifts and changes that leaders need to make from attractional to experiential. And I'm just interested. Tell me the three or four big things that you thought they're my headlines. That's what I'm walking away with. I am so glad the leaders in our network have heard that.
Yeah. So on the healthy leadership side of stuff, Dunk, um, I would say everything he talked about for the most part is in his book At Your Best. So it's a phenomenal read. If you haven't read it, it's phenomenal. I read it several years ago now when it first came out. It was really a great reminder for me though, because I think as leaders, we tend to slip, like the gravitational pull for a leader tends to be towards trying to do everything. And the thing that stood out to me was finding those two or three things that are uniquely your lanes and gifting, and spend as much time as possible as you can staying in those lanes and gifting. Stop trying to do everything and be all things to all people, and just accept the truth that you've probably got two, maybe three things that are uniquely giftings of yours that are the best thing for your organization, and work hard to spend as much time as you possibly can in those lanes for the majority of the time. All of us have stuff that we have to get done in order to, make an organization work and those kinds of things. But I think the gravitational pull oftentimes for leaders is towards things that we're not in our best sweet spot or lane. And we've got to fight that tendency to just stay in your lane and work in your sweet spot. The thing he also mentioned that I thought was fascinating, and I've heard others say this, is you probably have about 3 to 5 productive hours of work a day as a leader. Like you think you have 8 hours, but they're not all productive hours. And so if you can figure out your 3 to 5 hours of real high productivity and do what you're uniquely gifted at during those 3 to 5 hours, that's probably going to bring the best bang for buck to an organization, and you're going to be your healthiest as well. So Duncan, I did an exercise several years ago for the first time. It would have been when I was pastoring in Colorado at Red Rock. I put on the whiteboard for our entire team this simple statement: Red Rock Church is at its best when Jason, and then fill in the blank. And I had the team, I gave the whiteboard marker to my team, and I had them identify when Red Rock Church was at its best when I was doing specific things. And then we wrote the opposite statement on the whiteboard as well. Red Rock Church is at its worst when Jason is fill in the blank. And we did that for every team member. And it really helped us highlight for each team member what is their greatest contribution to the organization, and how do we get them doing those two or three things for their most productive hours of the day? How do we align all those kinds of things?
That's just to dive in on that, Jace. I mean, I've heard Carey talk about those productivity times. Is it a morning? Are you an afternoon or an evening person? It's really helpful, really helpful. It was a game-changing thought for me. But what you're talking about, some of us would warm to this idea of gathering our team and say, tell me, when do you think I'm at my best and when am I at my worst? Some of us would warm to that. Others of us would run a mile and would feel quite vulnerable with that.
Yeah.
And what were the benefits? What were the real benefits of doing it? Because I think for me, there's everything within me says that would be brilliant. But for some of us, we might worry that it would open a can of worms that we've got to go face for us and for other people on the staff. I mean, how dangerous is it to do something like that?
Well, it's okay. First off, I think you've hit on something, Duncan, that if your identity is tied to what you do, then that is going to be very scary. But if you are rock solid in your identity and who you are, not what you do, then what does it matter if people say, ABC Church is at its worst when Perko is doing these four things and you've got to quit doing them, Perko? Like, it's not a shot at you because you are secure in who you are in Christ, hopefully. But if your identity is tied to what you do, then I do think it could be a scary conversation. But that's another conversation that we've got to have. And I love those conversations. Obviously, I'm, soul care guy. I love that stuff. But Yeah, I think that's the trick is, or that's maybe the stumbling block is if you're scared to have that conversation, it might be because your identity is somewhat connected to what you do instead of who you are.